You're listening to JetNation Radio, the official podcast of JetNation.com, the largest independent fan site in the NFL. Be sure to check out our forums and talk all things Jets with thousands of other diehard Jets fans. Now, to get you up to date on all the latest Jets news, notes, and quotes, here are your hosts, Glenn Naughton and Alex Varallo.
Good evening, Jets fans. A late Merry Christmas and a slightly late Happy New Year. As you all know by now, the Jets have rid themselves of the plague that is Adam Gase. Kicked to the curb hours after the game, apparently minutes after returning to the facility. But bottom line, Adam Gase is no more. It's a great day on the one hand that Gase is flushed. But there's still that, for me anyway, I don't know about Alex and Dylan both here live. We're all going to talk about this tonight. For me, it stings a little because I don't recall a hire at the head coach position that was less popular among the fans than Adam Gase, almost universally ripped by Jets fans the second the hire was made. I know for people like me, I was ripping it when they rumored that he was going to be interviewed. Tried to be optimistic. I thought at least he would be better than Todd Bowles because, as we know, he beat Todd Bowles up for 3 years when he was with the Dolphins, posted a 4-2 record. As it turned out, he would go, 9-23, whatever his pathetic record was with the Jets. Adam Gase is gone. I saw LaMichael Pirine, Jets running back, liked the Jets official announcement on Instagram. Ty Johnson tweeted out, I don't know if you guys saw this, someone tweeted that Gase had been fired. I don't know if it was the rap sheet or whoever. And Ty Johnson commented on it, said, damn, we just got back to the facility 20 minutes ago. And the tweet had been sent 10 minutes earlier. So Gase fired within 10 minutes of getting back to the building. Should have been sooner. We'll file this under better late than never. We'll treat the last 2 years like it was a nightmare that never happened. As a Jets fan, I feel reinvigorated. I feel like, a fresh start. And I know we've had this before, but listen, it's been Kotite was the last time we had a guy this bad. So this just had to happen. Alex, your thoughts. Dylan, follow that up with yours.
Hey, guys. Glad to be back, and the three of us on the pod. Like you said, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everyone. New year, new team, new vibes. We have added by subtracting Adam Gase and getting rid of him here. It was a bad fit. Never really was a match made in heaven. He was unable to do the job, and to be honest with you, this was a very difficult job. Jets are still a train wreck. They got a lot of work to do. Adam Gase was a big part of this. I don't think he was the entire reason why the Jets have been so bad over the last 2 years. A lot of that has to do with the roster, in my opinion. But he did not help this team progress or move in the right direction. So it's a good day for a lot of fans that wanted him gone as of last year. That's the way the Jets are. Usually takes them a little bit longer than other teams to come around, but they finally did the right thing here by parting ways with a horrible head coach. And now the future has a little bit of brightness on it to where we might be able to get somebody in here that can do a heck of a better job than Adam Gase. So new day, new year, and very interested to see who our new coach will be. What do you think, Dylan?
I'm not sure which one of you guys said it, but I think the perfect phrase is better late than never. And everything Christopher Johnson said today is basically in that category, better late than never. So as a Jets fan, you got to just turn the page, start a new chapter. This is going to be a new era. Joe Douglas is going to lead the charge. Hopefully we can all put our trust behind him. We know, it hasn't been everything great from Joe Douglas so far, but it seems like he's going to be the guy, and Christopher Johnson trusts him to be the guy, listening to him in the press conference today. So definitely better late than never. I'm only 25 years old, so Rich Kotite was not a thing in my lifetime. So Adam Gase is definitely the worst coach I've ever seen coach this team by far. So I'm hoping that it's only up from here.
And, I saw last night, Jeff Schwartz comment that, why are people giving the Eagles such a hard time? Everyone was fine with the Jets tanking all season. And listen, you guys know, I said this a million times during the season. And the fact that the Jets went out and actually won a couple of games told us this team was not tanking. They just looked like it. When you're running draw plays on 2nd and 26, when you're throwing short of the sticks again and again and again and again and again and constantly, I wish I can't remember the exact numbers. I know it was bottom third of the league. I meant to jot it down when they said it during the broadcast yesterday, but it's a comment that I've made several times for over a year now. This head coach, and Gase said it himself, he was brought in to help develop Sam Darnold. And anybody who watches this game knows there are ways you can help your quarterback out. And some of the simple, basic ways you can help a young quarterback out is by using a lot of motion to give him an extra look at the defense. Is it man? Is it zone? Who's got who? Play action. Freeze the linebackers. Give them a little bit more time, especially when the offensive line stinks. And I get the running game has been bad, but a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's been Frank Gore, not Ty Johnson or Josh Adams. So basically, the Jets are bottom third in the league in play action, bottom third in the league, I think bottom 5, I believe, in the frequency with which they put guys in motion. They ran Frank Gore instead of the 3 guys on the roster who were all better than him. So this head coach, while trying to win football games, ran a vanilla, stagnant, just sort of standard offense and sent his worst players out there to do it while he was trying to win football games. So I don't want to hear that the Jets tanked. The Jets didn't tank. The Jets had Adam Gase. And when you have Adam Gase, it looks like you're tanking. And we saw it every time Johnson or Adams got extended carries. They looked infinitely better than Frank Gore did. But that didn't matter to Adam Gase. Frank Gore was 4th on the team in yards per carry. He was the slowest guy on the team. He had the worst production on the team. And he was still Adam Gase's go-to guy. So they weren't tanking. Gase was just a complete idiot and had no idea what the hell he was doing. So while there was, and I said a million times, I said, look, I don't know if they're tanking. It's hard to tell. They might just be losing these games on purpose based on the way Adam Gase is coaching. But when you go out and win a couple and you beat the Rams, I mean, the Rams are a 9-4 playoff team. You beat them on the road. Sounds like maybe you got some talent on your roster. And you got 2 wins, let's face it. You got one of them because the other team lost 4 receivers, an hour before the game started. So for all intents and purposes, the Jets were 2-14 because of COVID. Otherwise, that's a 1-15 football team. And we can talk about how there wasn't talent, but you certainly don't help yourself when you don't send the most talented guys out there. How many weeks did we come on this show? I know I took a ton of shit on Twitter for it, and I don't care. How many times did I say, throw Chris Herndon 10 footballs in the game and let him get his head on straight? Let him make a few catches and let him get going. Nothing. Over the last few weeks, they threw him a couple balls, 2 months ago? Makes a great leaping catch, makes a touchdown catch. Then he's invisible again, no targets for 3 weeks. And then all of a sudden, the last few weeks, it's like, oh, look, this guy's one of our better players. Yeah, you didn't stick with him through a tough time. He had a bad game, and you made him a blocking tight end, and he saw 1 target per game. It's his own damn fault that he screwed up, don't get me wrong. But as I said, when you're winless and 32nd in the NFL on offense, what the hell do you have to lose by keep going to the same guy to let him work through his issues? So this team may have looked like they were tanking. They were gasing. That's what this team was doing. So as it stands now, guys, we know the names that are being thrown around out there. So I'll throw out a few that we've seen. Matt Campbell, Joe Brady, Wink Martindale, Todd Monken. Well, Monken's my guy, one of my guys. Ryan Day, Brian Daboll, Eric Bieniemy, Arthur Smith, Pat Fitzgerald. Which names are you hearing, Alex? You go ahead and jump in first. Which names do you like most? Which names do you like least? If you could pick the guy right now, who would it be and why? And for the guys you don't like, why?
I've been hearing good things about Matt Campbell. I know that Arthur Smith is a name that is highly spoken of. I'm most familiar with Eric Bieniemy. That would probably be the guy that I would probably lean toward. I know, you personally feel, no coordinators, get somebody with some experience to come in and take this job. But, everybody starts somewhere. So that would probably be where I would go. My least probably would be like names like Bill O'Brien, or, maybe bringing in the Harbaugh guy. That was a rumor I saw the other day too. Not really too up to date, current on all these coaches as of yet, because it's still less than 24 hours since the firing. But at this point, I know it sounds kind of like the way we said it last year. Anybody but Gase. At this point, I kind of feel like that's going to be an improvement, regardless of the direction we go in. I do think experience does matter in a situation like this. The Jets have experimented with a lot of different types of coaches, and you brought in McCagnon, who was like a draft guy or an analyst, or scouting guy from the Texas team, and apparently, he was really good with the numbers, and obviously that didn't work out. He made a bunch of terrible contracts and drafted a bunch of players that are not even on the team anymore. We tried Todd Bowles out. I think Todd Bowles is a great defensive mind. He's proven that the last couple of years in Tampa, having top-rated defense, but he was not meant for the head coaching job role. He's doing much better in a coordinator's role. So, maybe where I'm leaning at as of today, January 4th, maybe somebody with experience would probably be the best bet. This way, it's not going to be experiencing things, on the fly and learning as you go, and, putting together pieces, as you just go through the process. Maybe having somebody that has been through this before might be the Jets' best direction. So this way they can come in here with a game plan, know where they want to go, put together a plan to where they want to be in the next few months, and or at the end of the season, and obtain those goals as well. So, maybe experience matters this time around.
Dylan, your thoughts?
Yeah, so last night during the Eagles game, I was tweeting out a bunch of times that I'm glad that the Eagles said that Doug Peterson had job security in Philadelphia, because he was on my number one list of, please let's not hire a head coach 3 minutes after he was fired from a team that was regressing year over year. And I'm very glad that they're going to retain him. So he was number one on my do not hire list. Also, Jim Harbaugh was up there. He's signing the extension through 2026 with Michigan. So luckily, another one. We're missing the bullet on that one. But a name that I personally have grown to like throughout the year, and Connor Rogers of Bleacher Report mentions him quite a bit, is Robert Saleh from San Francisco. I think he is kind of in that CEO type, where he can get along with the players. He can gel with his staff. He can do a lot of different things from an organizational standpoint that would be a lot different than the direction the team has gone with, a Gase or a Bowles. And also the kind of flair that I like in that is that Shanahan is likely to allow one of his assistants on offense, whether that's Mike McDaniels, the run game coordinator, or Mike LaFleur, who's the brother of Matt LaFleur, the Packers head coach. He's the pass game coordinator. So one of those assistants is likely to leave San Francisco, and Shanahan has been flirting that it will be in a pairing with Saleh to a new team. So that, to me, kind of intrigues me, because McDaniels and LaFleur are that offensive mind that we kind of need. Plus, with just being a brother of the Packers head coach, there's a tie there with a new franchise that we can take staff members from here and there. But just on Rob Saleh alone, I mean, the San Francisco defense was riddled with injury. We saw it week 2 against our own Jets. Nick Bosa and I think Eric Armstead both went down with ACL injuries. And they still finished 5th in total yards allowed on the season. They had just over 5,000, I believe, passing yards, where the Jets had 6,200 allowed. They were 4th against the pass, 7th against the rush, and they were also 4th on third down conversion percentage at 35.5, which the Jets have always had a problem at getting off the field on third down. They just drop those 2 linebackers in zone coverage and let you get the 8 yards that you need every single time. So I think that would be a difference maker for me. And then also I think either the Baltimore guys, Martindale or Greg Roman, I'm a fan of the power run scheme. I think you could utilize a mobile athletic quarterback, whether it is Fields, Wilson, Lance, wherever we go down that quarterback rabbit hole. I think they would fit the scheme well there. And Joe Douglas was a scout in Baltimore for a little bit of the time that each one of them was there. So there is a little bit of carryover there. But I think those would be my top 2 options. I mean, Bieniemy I like as well. He'd be my 3rd option. He's kind of just a polarizing option in the league in general. But I think at this point we've seen 6 names that the Jets have requested an interview with so far, and I think 5 out of the 6 names are very good hires off the bat. I don't know too much about Patrick Graham, the Giants defensive coordinator, but so far I have to say the wide net that's been cast has been so far so good.
Yeah, it's funny you use a couple terms that we're seeing used a ton on Twitter. The casting of the wide net and the CEO. But that's it's kind of what it is. I mean, sometimes you just that's the problem when you have between the mainstream news outlets, the bloggers, the podcast. If you're a Jets fan, you're following like 50 people who cover the team in some way, shape, or form. And they're all, we're all repeating each other. But this is what the Jets are looking for. They want a long list. For me personally, Alex, you as you said, I'm not a fan of Bieniemy. Couple reasons. One, Eric Bieniemy right now is what Adam Gase was 6 years ago. Oh, look at this record-setting offensive coordinator who's putting up 40 points a game. Yeah, with Peyton Manning. Bieniemy, record-setting numbers, with arguably the greatest trio the NFL has ever seen or will ever see with Mahomes, Hill, and Kelsey. And I don't listen. I won't, as I always say, I'm not going to pretend that I watched 16 Kansas City Chiefs games this year. But I did watch a handful, and or even just clips, even 20 minutes of a game. Every time I saw Eric Bieniemy, and this isn't a knock on him, like whatever his job is, whatever is expected of him, he's doing it. But every time I saw him, he was either talking to someone who was on the bench or standing behind Andy Reid quietly while Andy Reid was calling the plays. And I'm sorry. You know what I'm fed up with? And this is why, and it's funny because we evolve, a few years ago, if you would have asked me, I was a big believer, don't hire a college coach. You got to get an NFL guy who has some NFL experience. And I was adamant about it. However, I feel over the last few years, I can't recall a time in my life where the NFL and college were more similar. Everyone's running RPO, everyone's up tempo, everyone's 4 wide, 5 wide. You're seeing a lot of the same stuff. Now, a lot of times stuff will evolve from the college game to the NFL. But I just feel like right now there's so many similarities that I'd feel more comfortable hiring a head coach. And I'm sorry, but I am tired of being a fan of a team where everyone gets to audition as a head coach. They bring in guys who have never done it, and it's like, oh, well, the Jets can be my stepping stone. They can be, and how many coaches fail in their first gig? Most of them do. So I'm tired of the Jets hiring first-time guys who get to cut their teeth and learn the ins and outs of being a head coach while they compile terrible records, and then they move on somewhere else, and they either suck somewhere else or they get a job somewhere else, whatever. I'm tired of the Jets being a place for inexperienced guys to audition and see if they have what it takes to be a head coach. So to me, Bieniemy, he's got the same resume Gase had when Gase had a Hall of Fame quarterback. He's working for one of the best offensive coaches in the history of the league, in Andy Reid, who every time I turn on the TV, he's calling the plays. So I don't want Bieniemy for that reason. I don't want, Joe Brady is another name that's been thrown around. He's done some good things, but he's never been a head coach. You know, of all the guys being mentioned, that has never been a head coach that I can kind of get on board with is Wink Martindale in Baltimore, because that guy's fielded 3 top 5 defenses in a row. Like, that's pretty damn good. But that being said, my top choice is Matt Campbell out of Iowa State. Now you say, Iowa State, he's never won a big bowl game. Someone said to me yesterday, he doesn't produce NFL players. That's my point. He goes out every year. He wins 8 games every year. Coach of the year 2 out of the last 3 years. Might win it again this year. And he's a guy, you look at Iowa State's history prior to his arrival, the last time they won 8 games was in 2000, 20 years ago. And then he comes in and does it 3 times in 4 years. And, we've seen the motivation of the quotes, the speeches, and all that. That's all fine and good. But the guy gets results. And listen, the number one thing I look for in a coach, and I say it all the time, people get too hung up on rings. What has this coach ever won? What has that coach ever won? Listen, not every coach has the talent to win a ring. I want to know, do you get the most out of your players? As I just said with Adam Gase, we know that's not the case. We've seen 1 million of his players go on and succeed elsewhere and do better things when they get away from him. Matt Campbell, despite the fact that he's not an NFL football factory, he's not in Texas, he's not in California, he doesn't have 1 million kids to choose from right down the road to come and, go into the season with 16, 17, 18 5-star recruits. He doesn't have that, but he goes out and wins 8 games every year. So what do we have? We have a guy who's a proven head coach who took over a bad program and turned it around and gets the most out of his players. That's what I want. And then you got Pat Fitzgerald at Northwestern. Same type of situation there. You look at Northwestern the 3 or 4 years before he arrived, not a very good program. Since he's arrived, they don't bring in the most talent. They don't have a ton of 5-stars, but they just win football games. And then Todd Monken, who I've mentioned 1 million times, but I'm sure he's not even in the running. We're not hearing his name at all. He was supposedly the runner-up to Adam Gase last time around. Another guy, head coach, innovative, turned around the program when he was a college coach for 3 years. Took his team from 0 wins the year before he arrived to 9 wins 3 years later. He's doing great things at Georgia right now. I think he would be a great head coach. But those are my 3, and that's weird for me to say, because as I said, I've always been anti-college. But Matt Campbell, Pat Fitzgerald, Todd Monken, those are my top guys. Wink Martindale's my top guy that we've heard of from the pro ranks. So we'll see how it goes. Christopher Johnson today, guys, I'm not sure if you heard the presser. He said he would expect the team to have a coach hired within the next few weeks, if not sooner. So they do plan on moving fast. And the other thing that Chris Johnson addressed that I wanted to talk to you guys about, Sam Darnold. So Darnold with another stinker to end the season, 2 interceptions. One of them, I want to say it was triple coverage. I swear, I think there were 5 defenders in the area. And it was just an inaccurate throw. That, as they said on the broadcast, the window was there if he was an accurate throw. So even with the 5 defenders, there was a chance for a completion, but it didn't happen. Overthrew it. Then later in the game, throws into double coverage, intercepted. I want each of you to tell me why Sam Darnold will or will not be back, or even better, Alex, tell me if you think Sam Darnold will be back or not. And if you do think he'll be back, I'm sorry if you don't, because I get the feeling you don't. If you don't think Sam Darnold will be back, what do you think it would take to get him back? What would have to happen for Sam Darnold to stay a New York Jet? I want to hear from you, Alex, and then Dylan. What has to happen for Sam Darnold to remain a New York Jet next season?
Jordan Palmer would probably have to become our head coach, that or Dan Orlovsky, because those are probably the 2 biggest media guys that love Sam Darnold. That would probably be his safest bet. But in all seriousness, why would Sam Darnold get another crack at being a New York Jets quarterback in 2021? I believe that the Johnsons are a little naive when it comes to making difficult decisions. They wait, as you said before, Dylan, better, late than never or whatever it is. Sam Darnold has not proven to be the caliber of quarterback that we anticipated him to be by this timeline. But if he were to come back, I would have to think that whomever the new coach is would have the mindset of, I know what's wrong with Sam, I know how to fix him, and I know what system to implement to maximize his potential and get the most production out of him. So you would have to have the right individual that believes in himself, believes in Sam, and believes that he can get him on the right course. And not only, within an off season, like right away. Jets have to come out next year firing out on all cylinders in order for us to believe that, Sam is still going to be the long-term option. So you'd have to have the right head coach, believes in Sam. I think if a trade suitor came to us early on in the offseason and gave us another haul of picks for that number 2 spot, that would probably be the best situation for Sam's future with the Jets. We would have to get another first-round pick, maybe something for 2022, and then a day 2 pick at minimum. These draft picks are high commodities. Teams look to unload a lot of capital to get them. I just think about what the Jets had to do in order to move up to the number 3 spot a few years ago to take Sam Darnold. We gave up multiple 2s. We gave up our 1. And if you think about it, that could have possibly been the critical point in what made the Jets rebuild pretty much non-existent, because we gave up too many premium pieces to get Sam, and we just banked on everything kind of falling into place. Because as you and I had said way back then, Glenn, the hard part was over. We got the quarterback now. We just have to fill in the blanks elsewhere. So
that's the thing. Had Sam panned out, I don't think anyone would have complained about that trade. But as it turns out, it didn't. But yeah, you're right. It's the thought process was, we got the quarterback, now let's go from there. And didn't work out, did it?
So for Sam to stay here, I think you'd have to have the right head coach. I think you'd have to have the right trade suitor. And then you have to be aggressive as far as going into the off season here. I know that we did a lot of, mediocre type of deals. We were, signing players for 2 to 3 years at a, not too much of an expensive price. And, those things all seem good on paper, but when you look at what the results are on Sunday, it doesn't really seem like that was the right plan. So the Jets need to turn this 32nd ranked offense into something that is formidable and is of a viable threat next year. So if they have a very good off season as far as, obtaining, let's say a Pro Bowl offensive lineman in the interior side for one of our guard places, top wide receiver, like an Allen Robinson or Juju Smith-Schuster, or possibly a Chris Godwin. I think that Tampa Bay would be silly to let him walk, but if he ever did, those would be like the 3 wide receivers that I would like to have, paired up with Mims. So I think that if you have an aggressive offensive free agency, you get the right trade capital for that number 2 pick, then yes, there is a slim chance that Sam Darnold stays our quarterback for 2021. Now, how do I feel of whether or not he should be the quarterback for 2021? I think that Sam is a project. He was a project when he came in, and I think that there's still a lot of work that this young man needs to do. I don't think his career is completely toast, but I do feel that things just clearly have not worked out, and there's a lot of things that Sam carried over from college that he never really parted with. When he came to the NFL, his decision-making is still questionable. He doesn't do well against the blitz. He makes very minimal adjustments at the line. So, there's mentally that I feel that Sam Darnold should be doing at this point in time, and he's clearly not, because, we see him staring down receivers and throwing into tight coverage, double, triple coverage, and turning the ball over like he did multiple times yesterday. So there's just too many signs that he hasn't learned from his past mistakes. We keep seeing him doing the repetitive things when he's out there. And as far as one thing that you really want in a not only a NFL quarterback prospect, but just in a NFL quarterback period, is you want someone that can handle the pressure and can rise above it when their back is put into a corner. And, from what we've seen is that, Sam will make errant throws when he's under duress. Sam will think he feels pressure, leave the pocket, and make a bad choice and leave open wide receivers on the opposite side of the field. He's not even being able to see them because he's running away from potential pass rushers. So I kind of feel that there's too many bad habits that have been created over the last 3 years with Sam, that he needs to go back to the drawing board, analyze his film, and he really needs somebody that can teach him how to start working on a lot of these mistakes that he's made. And where the Jets are, we've hit rock bottom, and they can't invest into a player like him much more. Otherwise, you'll be in the rinse and repeat kind of, process that we've been in over the last, few decades. So, Dylan, I'll throw it over to you. But, yeah, at the end of the day, I think we need to move forward and get a new QB.
Yeah, actually, 1 second, Dylan. If you give me one, we'll get back to you on the Darnold thing. I'm just looking at the I'm looking at the studio here on WordPress, and a terrible oversight on my part. Shot out of a cannon. So excited with the Gase firing, I wanted to get right into the candidates. One guy I left out, and I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on for a couple reasons. Because he is within the division, and because of the work the Buffalo Bills have done with Josh Allen. Brian Daboll, who the Jets have requested an interview with. I just Googled, look up a couple of gambling sites that have, they'll place odds on most likely guy to be the next head coach. And they list Daboll as the favorite, with Bieniemy behind him, Matt Eberflus at the number 3, who's the Indianapolis Colts defensive coordinator. Again, another guy, no head coaching experience, would rather not. Daboll, to me, again, no head coaching experience, but the turnaround. I mean, you look at Josh Allen's numbers, and I don't know if you'll find a quarterback that's done. 2 years ago, he completed 58% of his passes. And this year, what was he, like 68, 69? You do not see that. You do not see quarterbacks go from sub-60 to nearly 70% completion percentage in a couple of years, if ever. Guys, you get guys out of college, you might be able to get their completion percentage up 3-4 points, maybe 5. But what do you go up, like 17 or 13 or whatever? That just doesn't happen. So Daboll, and he knows the division, I'd be a little bit more comfortable with that. But he's listed as the favorite, with Bieniemy. Eberflus is 3rd, Joe Brady 4th, Lincoln Riley 5th. I don't even mention Riley. Riley, to me, is like David Shaw and Stanford. Both guys I would like to have. Both guys, all I ever hear is that they are not going anywhere. Behind him, Matt Campbell, who's my top guy. Brian Schottenheimer, who would make Jets fans collectively puke. Dave Tube, I know nothing about. He's special teams coach for the Chiefs. Jim Harbaugh, please God, no. Arthur Smith, Robert Saleh, Bill O'Brien, no. Chuck Pagano, no. Pat Fitzgerald would be fine with me. Raheem Morris is an interesting name. I kind of get the feeling he'll stay in Atlanta. I think he did a nice job of turning them around this year, kind of getting their heads on straight collectively. We'll see how that goes. Dabo Sweeney, will he come out? Who knows? Urban Meyer, he's going to Jacksonville. Doug Peterson isn't out there. And right there with Doug Peterson, they list Rex Ryan. So he's at plus 3,300 if you want to win a bunch of money. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Dylan, but I realized I left Daboll off the list. And while I was searching, I found that list and wanted to share that. So please, your thoughts on Sam Darnold. Do you want him back? And do you envision a scenario in which he will be back?
So for anybody that follows me on Twitter, I've been saying it for a couple weeks now, longer than probably necessary, that Sam Darnold should not be the quarterback in 2021 for this team. I think the two key factors that you look at with Darnold, just in his play on the field alone, are his adaptability, like Alex touched on, just the lack of mental anticipation before each play. He does a couple things here and there, checking out of plays, and it's not up to the caliber of where it should be for a third-year quarterback. Sure, I understand he's 23 years old and can still learn a lot, but it's just not where it should be. And then the other key negative side with Darnold this year was the elevation of the play around him. And I go back to the first time the Jets played the Patriots when Joe Flacco was the quarterback, and it looked like we had wide receivers on the New York Jets that could do something. Brashad Perriman was catching deep balls. Denzel Mims was doing well. I mean, not necessarily in the Patriots game, but Crowder did well when Flacco was on the field for a game or two. So you just look at those two key factors alone, and I think Sam Darnold, in my opinion, shouldn't be the quarterback in 2021. That being said, I think a lot smarter people will make that decision than myself, which for the Jets is a good thing because I've been wrong on quarterbacks in the past. But in order for him to stay as the quarterback, I think the trade package at number 2 has to blow Joe Douglas out of the water to the point of it might even be a Jared Goff size trade where the Titans moved up from 15-2 to get Goff, or 15-1 to get Goff, and they traded 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and 2 third-round picks. I think it might honestly take a little bit more than that for Joe Douglas to budge out of that spot and stick with Sam Darnold. And also, I think if the underwhelming trade value of Sam Darnold comes back as like a 3rd or 4th round pick, which I don't really see likely the way Joe Douglas handles trades and just the value of quarterbacks in general in 2020, I think if the trade value on Sam Darnold is super underwhelming, I think it might force Joe Douglas's hand. But I also think that the head coach needs to absolutely be head over heels for this kid. So unfortunately, the deck is stacked against Darnold to return in 2021. It might be for the best that they just end up separating and, both parties end up making out in the end. Darnold could go to a better team like New Orleans or Pittsburgh, who's ready with a more playoff-ready roster that can just inject the 23-year-old quarterback on the fly that's ready to learn. And I think right now the Jets are in a position to just start fresh from the foundation up with the Joe Douglas-built roster.
All right. All good points, Dylan. I'll give my thoughts on Sam Darnold here in a second. First, we're going to go to the phones. Caller, 407 area code. What's your name? What do you got?
Hey, Glenn. Hi, it's me, Rich. Over in
Hey,
Florida.
Rich. How we doing?
Well, we're not locked down, man, so we're doing pretty good.
Oh, man, I'm in England. Like 3 hours ago, they just announced a 6-week full lockdown again.
Well, I'm not going to get into that topic or whatever, but
yeah. Let's talk about Adam Gase being locked out.
Yeah, man. Well, that's a good thing, right? So, I'm pretty much ecstatic about Gase. I heard, Mr. Johnson's remarks. I'm glad that the GM is going to take the lead on this. So it looks like we're finally turning the corner, per se, to doing things the right way and changing the culture, how the Jets do things or whatever. And honestly, they have to win back the fan base. And I don't know how you guys feel about that. I know the fan base is pretty much all over the place as far as coaching and QBs, like you guys were talking about. I'm a big Darnold fan. My argument towards Darnold would be he had 2 years of college before he came out. So then he had the 3 years with NFL experience. So he's technically kind of almost on his first year in the NFL as far as growth is concerned. But I attribute a lot of he's got his own issues that he had when I watched him at USC. He was pretty much a wild card or whatever. Something that troubled me when I saw him in the Patriots game, this last game or whatever, he looked totally confused, just didn't know how to read that defense. And then some of the points you guys are making as far as audibles or making adjustments on the fly out there. And I attribute that to coaching. And then, again, he had the 2 years of college and then the 3 years of NFL experience, which was hindered somewhat by injuries and whatnot. And so, again, higher mind, it just all depends on who Joe Douglas and the new coach is going to fall in love with and then who they want to bring in or whatever. But I would love to see him back. I think that even if you bring a guy in, Chase Young, the Ohio State guy or whatever, we're just going to be, pretty much starting all over the place. But I won't, it'll just be like, putting in a rookie into the position where we are today, adding a couple of pieces or whatever. I like the tackle. I would love to get him and then solidify that O-line and then, head in the right direction or whatever. Maybe down the line we can score a QB if for whatever reason Darnold doesn't pan out. But that's pretty much what I have to say. And, how much are we going to attribute Darnold's hindrance and growth? I compare him with the class, right? You talked about the OC coordinator there in Buffalo, how he did with Josh Allen. And I think he could do the same thing with Darnold. I honestly believe he's the lead. I would love to see him as a Jet coach. I know he has no experience. I don't want to see any retreads. People. I knew some of the networks use that phrase, and I kind of like it. But I like to see fresh blood and see what they can do. So any of the OCs that are out there or defensive coordinators that are out there or college would be just fine for me or whatever. But I don't know what your takes are as far as, I know you guys have been talking about candidates, but I missed out the beginning portion of the show. And I don't know if you guys want to talk about, like, do you guys prefer to see somebody like that with no experience and that really has good offensive coordinator and shown to be, possible good coach? Or you want to see somebody with
we went across the board. We all had our opinions, but I think we want someone. I think I was bigger on the head coaching experience than you guys were, but just coordinators who have done their job at a high level. Eric Bieniemy's name, of course, comes up, but I think there are some questions there, at least in my opinion. But listen, the thing is, we can talk about this stuff till the cows come home, and we will. It's going to dominate the conversation for the next few weeks. But none of us know. You know what I'm like? I can say I want this, that, and the other. I want a guy with head coaching experience who's built a program, blah, blah, blah. They might hire a guy who doesn't fit one friggin' box, doesn't tick one box that I'm putting out there, and the guy might go on to win a Super Bowl. Nobody knows. We're just kind of doing what we do. We're fans. We have opinions from our years of watching. But I think that this team, I think they realize the importance of getting it right. I think one of the more important things is that Chris Johnson said in his statement, and a couple of media folks reported it too, so obviously it was said to them that they're going to get out of the way. Chris Johnson is going to make the hire, but Joe Douglas is going to have the biggest voice in the room, which means to me Chris Johnson is just going to say yes when Joe Douglas says, hire this guy. As the owner, of course, he's the one signing the checks. Of course he has to say, okay, but I don't see a scenario where Chris Johnson or Jaime Elhai decide they're going to tell Joe Douglas that sorry, Joe, you got the wrong guy. Joe's the football expert in the room. He's got more respect than any GM they've had in over a decade. So I think that's the way I see that unfolding. But thanks so much for calling in, Rich. Always appreciate it, buddy.
Hey, no problem. You take care out there.
All right, take care.
Bye.
All right, we are going to go back to the phones again one more time here. We got a caller from 919 area code. Caller, what's your name? What do you got?
Hey, Glenn, Southern Jet, Rich.
Hey, Rich, we got another Rich on the line. How we doing, buddy?
How you doing, man? Hey, three quick things, and then I'll let you talk. I'll start off with, I think you're right up there with reporters, so I respect you. Number one, if you can comment when I hang up about the difference in play calling we saw the last 4 weeks. Was that Douglas directed or Gase auditioning for a job? Because we saw the emergence of Herndon and some down the field passes. Number two, If we go CEO type, I like Matt Campbell. If we go established coordinator, I like Brian Dable. And number 3, I think there's an interesting dynamic going on right now. If Urban Meyer goes to Jacksonville and Fields lights it up against Alabama, because Meyer is going to institute the Ohio State scheme and playbook, which Fields played because Ohio State kept his playbook when he left. So those are the things that I'm curious about.
Yeah, that's a great point. People jumped on that right away, and rightfully so. I mean, all this talk about Trevor Lawrence, this, that, and the other, and then all of a sudden, the guy who many people view as QB2 behind Trevor Lawrence, who far outplayed Trevor Lawrence the other day, an Ohio State coach is slotted to go in and take over the job at Jacksonville. And I think it's a good question. Listen, if Fields goes out there and lights up Alabama, it's a good case. But I will say, though, I saw a quote earlier a couple days ago when all that talk started. Urban Meyer was asked about Trevor Lawrence, I think a year or so ago, and he just raved about him, like one of the best college quarterbacks I've ever seen. So it's not a lock or anything, but I think it definitely, and again, especially if he lights up Alabama, I think that becomes a very interesting discussion. But
Blaine, you know more about it than I do, but I'll throw in this interesting tidbit that happened today is that Khan said he will take some GM ownership. Yeah, so what that tells me is that they might have a handshake with Harbaugh, who wants Fields, and Khan is going to take the PR hit in the area, saying I'm the one who decided it, to take that burden off of Harbaugh. That's a weird thing that happened. And the only thing I can think of in all my years is he's going to take the PR hit for Harbaugh.
That was a weird thing.
I mean, for Alex, Meyer, for Urban Meyer. Yeah,
Alex and Dylan. I'm not sure if you guys saw that. The Jaguars owner today said publicly that he will be the one that controls the 53-man roster, which I can't remember the last time an owner.
Yep.
I can't remember the last time an owner said that publicly. But Alex, what are your thoughts, Alex? Rich's question about the offensive play calling. Why did Chris Herndon all of a sudden become a factor? Do you think that was maybe Sam Darnold just prioritizing him and looking for him a little bit more, or do you think the Jets? Do you think Adam Gase was just trying to change things up for the sake of trying to, pick up some yards and do something right for a change?
Yeah, it was pretty bizarre. I didn't realize that we actually had a tight end that can receive and catch the football and do positive things. It's been so long since I've seen someone from that position do something positive. So, he was the forgotten man this year. He's someone that you and I talked about at length, Glenn, about how he was going to be a pivotal piece to this offense because, things were looking pretty good at the back end of the 2019 season, and things were happening without, a Denzel Mims or Chris Herndon or, what we thought would be a formidable offensive line. So, possibly to do with maybe the scheme. I know that the type of defense that the New England plays is, they rely heavily on their defensive backs to, play good coverage on the outside and, pin their ears back and get after the quarterback. This was a pretty bizarre year. I've never seen the Patriots struggle the way that they have, which is kind of something to smile about because at least, with everything that was going bad with the Jets, seeing their struggles, put a little smile on my face. I'd have to think that it just was probably just a good scenario for Herndon. I was happy for him because, his future with the Jets is a little in question at this point. And, he didn't put up.
Not anymore.
I hope at this point to see whether or not if he could be something. But, a friend of mine who, has studied Gase in the past, and, he had said something to me in 2019 when Gase came on here, and he said, just look at, the teams that he's run, and statistically, the tight ends are pretty much, non-existent.
Invisible. Well, you look at what he did with Gesicki in Miami.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Gesicki has a better year this year. not with Gase. I think Gase probably got lucky with the Julius Thomas guy for a couple of years because he was kind of a flash in the pan. Injuries kind of fizzled him out of the league. But, it just looks like the type of offense in which Gase runs, he uses his tight ends more in his zone blocking scheme. And with our porous offensive line, these guys were doing more pass protection than they were running routes in certain scenarios. He just didn't script him at all.
Thank God those days are over, right?
And absolutely.
Thank God those days are over.
Hopefully we have somebody that has an understanding of when you have young players that show certain skill sets, you utilize that and you implement that, and you, like you said, Glenn, you push the ball to their area to make the defense make an adjustment. And we didn't threaten teams in any shape or manner with our personnel this year. People knew we were looking for Herndon. For Crowder. And a lot of teams try to get Crowder to be non-existent for Sam, and that would force him to go elsewhere. And we saw how much Sam struggled from that.
He didn't have time to because he can't get past the second read with all the pass rush.
Yeah, a lot of issues 100%. There to be worked out. There was one more part to your question, Rich. What was the other thing?
No, my second one. My second one was just saying that if we go CEO route, I liked Campbell. If we go offensive coordinator route, I like Dable. And I'll finish with I still say that Khan has taken a PR hit for Urban Meyer, who wants Fields.
It could be that's something that is going to be worth watching in the coming months. But thanks so much for calling in, Rich. Appreciate it.
Yep. Take care, man.
All right, take care.
Be well, Rich. Thanks.
All right, fellas. So where were we? Okay, so Sam Darnold. We were talking about Darnold. Dylan gave your take. Alex, what you think it'll take for Sam Darnold to come back. I don't see Sam Darnold coming back based on the production, the struggles, the fact that he's broken. I like the kid. I think he's a likable kid. I think he puts in the work. I'm not someone who's going to give up on a guy who's 22 years old who has the ceiling that he has. Everyone I'm seeing people post box scores and numbers and big plays and throws on the run and all these. This is why we should take Fields. I'm like, I watched Sam Darnold make that same throw with USC, like against Penn State. Like these are the things he did. That's why he was drafted where he was. It's just the problem now is that Sam Darnold is a worse player today than he was when he came in the league. So you have to get Sam Darnold to improve just to get him back to baseline. So the amount of work that needs to be done, the fact that he's due $25 million if you keep him beyond next season, I think makes it a virtual impossibility that you keep Sam Darnold. But two things I did want to mention that kind of, because when you're as insane about this team as we are, these are the things you think about when you can't sleep at night. I'm thinking about the fact that Ian Rappaport said the Jets might be able to get a 2 for Sam Darnold. I'm thinking about the fact that who was it? Name is escaping me. Said the Jets could get a 2 and a 3 for Sam Darnold. And I'm thinking to myself, and we're talking like, say you're Joe Douglas, and I said a couple months ago just for fun, what if the Patriots call and they want Sam? What do you think? But leave a division rival out of the conversation. If you're Joe Douglas, and let's say, for instance, it's being rumored now that Drew Brees is going to retire, and let's say Sean Payton calls and says, hey, I'll give you a 2 and a 3 for Sam Darnold. Like, is there not a part of you that says, hang on a minute, I need a quarterback, and one of the most respected offensive minds in the NFL is willing to give me multiple premium picks for the guy that I already have? Wouldn't that make you think, like, wait a minute, do I have something here? Am I missing something? And I saw a tweet the other day, I can't remember if it was Schefter, who said that they could see up to 10 teams making the Jets offers for Sam Darnold. And that's interesting to me, because here I am. I love the kid out of college. I love him now. I'd love nothing more than to see him succeed. But even I'm at the point where I'm saying, look, you have to move on. You got to do it. But then I look at that and go, so 10 teams want this guy that I think it's time to get rid of so we can bring in another unproven guy. Just think that's a sort of interesting way to look at it. But the only way I see Sam Darnold staying is if, and you guys have mentioned the possibility of a trade down at 2 and the extra picks you can get, which, of course, any GM would want that. But if let's say Joe Douglas brings in Brian Daboll or Matt Campbell, whoever he brings in, and they sit down and talk, and let's say, because these guys, as we all know, you don't become a head football coach without having some ego, without having some serious self-confidence. Let's say Matt Campbell sits down and says, I can fix that kid. I can win with him. You give me a year with him in my system, and we can win 10, 12 games. And let's say that coach convinces Joe Douglas that they believe they can. And listen, people that hate Sam Darnold could say, Glenn, you're an idiot. Look at his numbers. Look at the throws into double coverage, triple coverage. Look at the completion percentage. Look at the regression. These are all things I know. I've talked about these things all year. However, and listen, maybe Schefter is wrong. Maybe these teams aren't going to come knocking. But if they do, if teams are offering premium picks, that means these teams think they can win with Sam Darnold. So is it that far-fetched to say that a new guy who's brought in might come in and say the same thing? Joe, don't draft another quarterback. Use that pick to build the O-line or trade down and get us some more players. I can win with this kid. That's the only way I see Sam Darnold staying. But I don't see how a guy can come in and see the throws into double and triple coverage and the regression and the completion percentage and say, I want to hitch my wagon to that kid. I don't. But listen, stranger things have happened. That's the only way I see Darnold staying, is if the new guy says, Joe, you go have a ball with your draft picks. I can win with Sam Darnold. And we'll see how it goes and, what the future holds at that position. Because it really is it's frustrating, Alex. You talked about the draft picks that were used to get him, and unfortunately it obviously didn't work out. But, sometimes that's the way it goes. But another thing I wanted to touch on before we wrap things up from this just to end on we started on a high note. We started with Adam Gase is fired. But it was a lost season, miserable season, 2-14. But I want both of you now, again, so we can leave on a high note. Give me 3 or 4 or 5 players that you looked at and said, this guy finally took that, Quinnen Williams, obviously he's going to make any list. Mekhi Becton, obviously. But who are some guys that stood out to you that you can say, we didn't know what we had in that guy coming into the year, but now he's someone we might be able to build around, or at least who can be a part of this moving forward? Alex, give me 3, 4, 5 guys. Dylan, you do the same.
Okay. I think if we're going to look at let's look at the defense just for a quick second here. Just a couple guys here that stood out to me. Very, very small sample sizes here. I liked what I saw out of Bryce Hall, with certain reps that he took. He played against some decent competition over the last few weeks. Obviously he's a little raw, but he's been removed from the game due to that nasty broken ankle he had from a couple years ago. So I think that there is some potential with Bryce Hall. No shocker here. We've talked about him plenty of times on this show. Ashton Davis was somebody else up until his injury that was showing some things. I clearly felt that he, in certain scenarios, looked like a deer in headlights, but you did see some pop. He was getting around, flying around the field. So there's a couple pieces in the defensive backfield that, we could probably go forward with it and rebuild, the back end of the defense and make it as strong as what it used to be. Obviously Marcus May would be in that formula, but I really liked what I saw from certain things from Davis and Bryce Hall, and somebody that kind of didn't do much early on, but kind of came on near the back end of the year is Alonzo Fatukasi. Somebody that we've talked about quite a lot. I really hope that he ends up being, a trench guy for years to come. And, the obvious, like you said, was Becton and Quinnen Williams. So there's a few players there. Offensively, I don't think we saw enough out of Mims, but what we did see was a player that, has that acrobatic ability to get up and go get the football in 50-50 situations. We saw what he did near the sidelines. He was doing some small things that you see out of veteran receivers, very early on in the process. And kind of like you said, Glenn, with Herndon, he wasn't scripted as much. Maybe 7-8 targets a game, which is decent for a rookie. But I kind of feel that there's some really, really untapped potential. I mean, if you think about a second-round pick, somebody that was talked about in certain circles as a first-round back-end pick in Denzel Mims, coming away with the season with 0 touchdowns, really, really unfortunate. And I kind of think that we're going to be pleasantly surprised once he gets healthy. And if we do get the right guy, calling the plays, and if we do find a, formidable quarterback that is going to compete and keep us honest in games going into the fourth quarter, I think Denzel Mims has a really, really bright future. There's really, really not that much when you're looking at a 2-14 team. But, even like somebody like a Wesco, who, I got my green goggles on right now, seeing him come back over the last couple weeks and, getting to that second level and, cleaning linebackers and helping, lanes being open for Ty Johnson. Even old man Frank Gore was a benefactor in these last couple weeks from Wesco coming into the fold. So not great pieces, but there are some pieces that I think with the right offensive mind and a guy that has a better plan than what Adam Gase had, I do think that, all hope is not lost with certain guys on this roster. Statistically, you could poo-poo all my takes. But when we look at the sample size and some of the good things, which are not a lot, but when you harness in on those reps that some of these guys took, there's no reason why a player like Mims can't be a 1,000-yard receiver flirting with double-digit touchdowns for this team. There's no reason that, a Herndon and a Wesco could be a 1-2 punch from the tight end position. There's no reason that Bryce Hall falls back into that, 2018, 2019 status that he was in Virginia and being just a dominant outside corner. So there's a lot of players here that we've yet to see their potential. I feel we've barely scratched the surface. So not a lot, but, with all these picks that we have going into 2021 and 2022, if these guys flourish as we hope that they do, might actually really have something decent in a couple of years with this organization. And I know, New York Minute, we want to see it now. Unfortunately, we're just going to have to be a little bit patient.
All right, Dylan?
Yeah, so, to preface this, I just want to start by saying there's going to be roughly 20 open roster spots on the Jets next year, and they're just coming off a 2-14 campaign. So going second in this little exercise is going to be a little difficult, especially considering that my laptop just crashed. But the 5 names that I just jotted down while Alex was talking real quick, I started up front in the O-line. I think that's Joe Douglas's baby, if you will. I think he's going to continue to manicure that position as an overall unit and make sure that they have a cohesion going year after year and not replacing 4 linemen every single year. So I kind of like what I saw from Elflein. I know not everybody in the Jets community has been in love with everything he's seen. There's a couple flash plays in the run, and then he lets up a lot of pressures in the pass. I think that can overall progress next year, get him some more time next to Mekhi Becton, next to Connor McGovern, who also makes my list. I think Connor McGovern is a big foundational piece we can build around. I think overall on the offensive line, the center is probably the second most important position. I think it goes left tackle, center, then right tackle. I know some people think right tackle might be more important than center, but McGovern has been solid. The guard play around him hasn't been great. We know the story all year. I think another year in the system under Frank Pollock, if he stays around, I think the three of those guys on the left side can really hold it down. Another offensive guy was Ty Johnson, the guy that was exploding through the holes behind these blockers. I think every chance that we had to see him as Jets fans, we came away wanting more, whether it was a great performance or a bad performance. I think no matter what, he just left enough on the table where it's like we could have a running back 2 or 3 out of this guy, and to pair him with Pirine and maybe another rookie coming in, I think a running back by committee could be a really good thing for this team. And then on the defensive side of the ball, the 2 names that I came away with were Neville Hewitt. I think he was all over the field pretty much week in and week out. You always saw number 46 somewhere around the ball. He wasn't the best in pass protection, and I think if a C.J. Mosley comes back or if they go after the linebacker position in free agency, I think that will only make Hewitt better as a foundational piece in the second level of the defense. And also, I like slot corner Javelin Guidry. He didn't play a whole lot. He had a slightly limited role, but as an undrafted free agent to come in when all the injuries were mounting up for the Jets, and he came in and he had 3 forced fumbles in 2 games. And I thought that everything that he showed was enough that he could be a depth piece at a position that you want to have a lot of depth at in corner. So I think those 5 to me were the under the radar foundational pieces that Joe Douglas might have a hard time letting go of if the decision comes to that.
All right, Dylan, thanks for that. And before I offer up my handful of guys that I want to mention, first I want to mention our sponsor, Miles Social. Jet Nation would like to thank Miles Social. If you're a business owner, big, small, large, whatever size business, and you need help running all of your social media platforms, check out Miles Social at milesocial.com. That's milesocial.com, milesocial.com. Miles Social will help get more customers through your door and more money in your pockets. So, listen, for me, guys, coming away from this, I think, maybe this is a little bit of the it's definitely a little bit of the green-colored glasses, but there is definitely some reality here as well. As the saying goes, with football, it all starts in the trenches, right? This defensive line with Quinnen Williams, with what John Franklin Myers showed, Henry Anderson obviously will be gone, but they have some pieces here to build around who are, give them the chance to win up front every week on defense if things keep going the way. Quinnen Williams played at an elite level. No, he wasn't Aaron Donald, but there is every reason to believe this would have been a 10-sack season for him had he stayed healthy. So that might be one question if you want to worry about that. His health, perhaps. But they have some guys up front, Foley, Fatukasi, Nathan Shepard. When his reps went up, Nathan Shepard looked like a different player. So between Quinnen and Franklin Myers, Fatukasi, Shepard, they have some guys up front who can beat you up in the trenches. That's a great thing. On the other side of the ball, we've talked about Becton. I wholeheartedly agree on McGovern. As far as I'm concerned, those 2 spots are locked in. Fant at right tackle, I don't love, but I think you can live with them. I really do. In my mind, going into this offseason, you have 2 questions. One is, do you believe Cam Clark can play? If not, you got to find another guard either in the draft, because in free agency, you got to throw a bunch of money at Thuney or at Scherf and see if you can get one of those guys. So to me, if you land Thuney and you think Clark can play, or you get another guard, your whole line's good to go as far as I'm concerned. You're not going to be the 2009 Jets with Damian Woody and Alan Faneca. No, you're not. But you're going to be damn good, right? And really, the only reason I say that is because of Fant. He is an adequate player. He's not going to dominate anyone. But there's still not, as I say all the time, you're never going to have 22 dominant starters. If you have a bunch of guys who can get the job done more times than not, you have a shot. So let's say you go Fant at right tackle, and then add a right guard through the draft. Maybe it's Cam Clark. You sign Thuney and you add them to Becton and McGovern. I think that's a great, great offensive line. And then all of a sudden, up front on offense and defense, you're a force to be reckoned with. Okay, then, of course, we saw down the stretch what Chris Herndon can do. Get that guy involved again. He should be an elite weapon at tight end. Denzel Mims, Get him some more targets. Got to see if he can stay healthy. This entire draft class, every single guy in this draft class either had multiple minor injuries or 1 or 2 major injuries or didn't get on the field. That was it. Outside of Braden Mann. Every single guy missed time due to injury or just didn't get on the field at all. So these guys got to get healthy, stay healthy. But you mentioned Bryce Hall, Alex. I think he's going to be a really good corner. I think if Marcus May comes back, which he said publicly he loves it, he'd love to stay. I think if a winning team, I think if a playoff team calls him, I think he will run for the hills and try to win a few football games and see what that feels like. But there are some pieces. There are some pieces on the O-line. There's some pieces on the D-line. There's some pieces in the secondary. And this wasn't the case the last time. The last time they hit the reset button. So there's some pieces to build around, some things to be happy about, and we'll have a lot more to talk about in the coming weeks, guys. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you, Dylan and Alex, for doing a little bit of a long show tonight, but well worth it. And that'll do it for us tonight. Have a good one, Jets fans.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at JetNation Radio. Glenn is at AceFan23 and Alex is at NYJetsLife24.
Until next time,
go Jets!